Hey everybody, welcome back for the third and final round. I'm on the play here, and though I don't have any 2-drops, I should be in a good spot as long as I draw into more land, so I decide to keep. I managed to rip Gossip Monger off the top of my deck, so I don't have to worry about getting outpaced by my opponent. I managed to get ahead when he doesn't have a 3-drop and freezes. I managed to get ahead when he doesn't have a 3-drop and freezes 2-drop for a turn so I can get ahead of him on life. When he drops Odric, I offer him a trade with my Incited Rabble, knowing that any lead I get is in danger if he can just spend 4 mana to give his entire team first strike. I'm happy to see him take the trade, but I don't have any follow-up plays to build out my board for the turn, which gives my opponent the initiative to take board control. Since my deck doesn't do well on defense, I have to leverage my cards to take back tempo instead of trying to wall up, which is tough with that veteran Cathar in play. His board presence is better than mine at this point, so I can't just pass the turn and hold up confirmed suspicions. By locking down Dauntless Cathar with sleep paralysis and playing ongoing investigation, I can bring my opponent down to 5 life, which puts him very close to lethal range if he tries to alpha strike on the crackback. This also gives me a clue token to cash in for a second draw next turn if I don't top deck anything that'll help me net the game. Even if my opponent dumps 4 mana into giving his 3/3 double strike, he'll still only do 8 damage to me next turn, putting me down to 5. Add an extra land and aim high, and he puts me down to 1. He could try to go for it and drop a chump blocker to keep me from winning immediately, but I have 3 more pieces removal and adjust the wind in my deck, which puts me in a pretty good position to just clear any chump blocker he plays and immediately win the game. It's a risky play, but it's the best chance I have of winning the game. Going on the defensive is just going to drag out my inevitable loss an extra turn or two. My opponent decides to go all in, dropping a Lone Dryad to chump block. My first draw is Drownyard Explorers. I could drop it and draw things out for another turn, but I have the mana to do that after cashing in my clue token first, so I decide to go ahead and do that. My second draw gets me one of my Angelic Purges, which I slam on the Lone Dryad and swing for lethal. During my sideboard, I decide I can easily pitch Confirmed Suspicions. As a white-green humans deck, my opponent is going to be curving out a lot just like I am, and I can't afford to just hold up 5 mana for a counterspell. Strength of Arms, on the other hand, will go a long way towards helping my creatures rumble against his army of 2 and 3 toughness creatures. My opening hand for game 2 is a little light on playables, but I'm pretty happy with having Trueface Censor, so I can grind out value with it early and often. I managed to rip a Thraben Inspector on my first draw and get out to an early 1-drop, 2-drop lead, but my opponent plays a turn 3 Dauntless Cathar and puts the brakes on my aggression. I don't really want to trade off one of my creatures right now since I don't have the replacements in hand, and I know my opponent would be more than happy to cash in his Cathar for a 1/1 Spirit token and pass the turn so his Werewolf can flip. But when he cracks in with the Cathar, I decide it's better to take the 3 damage off the table instead of letting him get a life lead on me. I don't get any creatures to follow up with after trading off my 2-drop, so I run out my Trueface Censor and throw it on the Inspector to force my opponent to decide between making a bad trade or taking 3 damage. He almost gives me a 2-for-1, but catches himself at the last second. Either way, I'm happy to trade off my 1-drop for his veteran Cathar. Behind on the board, but my opponent's next play is pretty defensive. Since I have 16 life at this point, I feel safe taking my time to run out my Vessel of Ephemera so I can crack it at my leisure. With a 4/3 Vigilance on the board, my opponent isn't going to be haphazardly swinging with his team, and since he didn't play a pump spell when I attack with my Militia Captain, I feel confident in blocking with impunity should he get aggressive. Expose Evil punishes me for my small board, but he doesn't have enough power in play to make me feel nervous, and only puts me down to 10 life. The real question comes up when he lets his Werewolf flip. I can run out my Niblis at this point to block the Shredder, but if I do, I only have the mana to play either Ongoing Investigation or just the Wind. The enchantment doesn't help me right now since I'm not attacking, and if I'm going to hold up just the Wind, I'd rather use my other 3 mana to crack my Vessel instead, putting me an extra creature closer to flipping my Militia Captain. Plus, if I trade off my Niblis for his Shredder, I have to dig for another creature to flip my captain, which may happen right away or may take me a few turns. And those few turns could be the difference between staying in the game and getting run over. I decide to pass the turn with my mana open, then bounce the Shredder to buy myself an extra turn, crack the Vessel to put me a creature away from flipping my captain. Since I still don't have any great attacks, I pass the turn again, and when my opponent attacks with his flyer, I throw down Strength of Arms pre-combat to avoid being blown out by Puncturing Light, then eat his creature. Even if he had a pump spell here, I'd still be in a good spot since I got the 1/1 token for having equipment on the board, forcing him to also have a removal spell if he wants to keep me from flipping my captain after his turn. With my Cult Leader in play, things quickly go downhill for my opponent. It's big enough that he has to lose 3 creatures just to kill it, and I'm perfectly fine with that. With ongoing investigation online, there's no way he's going to catch up if he trades away most of his board for a single one of my creatures. He takes a big hit the first time I swing in and tries to drag out the game by chump blocking for a couple turns, but he can't seem to draw into the removal he desperately needs to take out my big creature, and my board just keeps getting wider. He finally hits the point of no return and decides to just concede the match. That's it for the draft and for Triple Shadows over Innistrad. I really love tempo decks, and this one ended up pretty sweet, even if it took a little bit of luck to piece it together. I won't have another draft up for a while, but when I do, will be knee-deep in Eldritch Moon. So I'll see you guys all then.